So the vast majority of people out there use public cloud for storing their data, either Google Drive or Dropbox, any of the proprietary ones, or maybe you've chosen to use a open source version, which is Nextcloud. Now, the problem with using public clouds like this is that you really have no control over what these companies do with your data. So they've been quite blatant in that they collect metadata and other EXIF data off of it to gain more user insights into you, but also they could potentially be doing anything on it. We don't really know. And even if you do trust these big companies, which you probably shouldn't, there's nothing that really stops them from doing anything nefarious on it. Even if you use something like Nextcloud or another open source clouds storage provider, if you're using a public cloud that's provided by some company on their server, then there's nothing really stopping them from, looking through the data unless it's encrypted. So this video is targeted towards you. Yes, you, the people who use public clouds. I'm going to show you how you can encrypt your files using GPG. I'm going to show you how you can compress the files so that they take up less room. And I'm also going to show you how you can take away any metadata so that they can't even gain any sort of user insights into you, such as what type of device you've created data on or when you took the photo or whatever. So I'm going to show you how to do it manually first, and then I'm going to show you a cool tool that I created that basically does all this automatically. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to need before any of this is you're going to need a GPG key. So GPG is a command line tool that allows you to create encryption keys and to encrypt files for specific people. So it uses public key encryption. So that means that you take someone's key and you sign a file with that key, so only they can access it. Okay, so before we get started, you're going to need to generate a key. So it's full generate. Yeah, okay. So you're going to select what type of key you want. Just going to select RSA, which is the default. The default key size. So the bigger your key size is, the longer it's going to take to decrypt and encrypt stuff. But you want as many bits as possible. You want it as hard to crack as possible. So I'm going to say the max. So how long does it take to expire? I'm going to say 6 months. It's good to do this because then you're going to renew your key, so you have less chance of someone, if someone does take your key or find it or whatever, then you're going to renew it anyway. So I'm going to say 6 months, correct. So I'm going to put my name in, ONC, email address. I'm just going to use contact@owencoogan.com. Comments, going to leave that out, and okay. And so it's going to ask you to put in a password. I'm just going to put in a password. And so it's going to generate a key using entropy. So if you just move your mouse around and type in random keys, it'll generate it. But there we go. So if I run GPG list keys, I can see that I've created a key now here. Actually, I created another one when I was testing this out, but this is the new one that I've generated. So before we get started, let's talk about metadata. So when you create a file, there is a lot of metadata that's associated with that file, such as when it was created, what location it was created, if your device uses GPS location, what sort of device it was created on, stuff like that. And this metadata can be used to gain further insight into your user behavior, such as, what type of device do you normally use? Where were you when you took the picture? Were you on holidays? Were you visiting someone, for example? So there's a tool that's quite well known called EXIF tools, I believe. And basically it just allows you to, just like it just lists out all the EXIF data on the files. I'm going to show you a different tool today. So there's something called MAT2, which you will probably need to download unless you're on Tails OS, which is the only operating system I've seen it on so far. But basically MAT2 works on a lot of extra file types. So although it allows you to list and clean off data on files just like EXIF tools, it works on PDFs as well, and it works on some other file types. With EXIF tools, I believe it only really works on pictures, and it only really works on certain text files and stuff like that. So if you have a PDF, for example, you're going to be fucked if you use EXIF tools. So inside this test directory, I have a directory called my directory. And inside this directory, I have a single file. So this file is just a picture of an absolute unit of a sheep. So this is a very famous sheep called Shrek. He got away from his pen and he started growing out his hair. I think it's perfectly symbolic of what we all looked like after the 4 months of lockdown when all the barbers were closed. So I'm going to get this picture and I'm going to remove it of metadata first off. So I'm going to run mat2. Again, download this if you don't have it already. So there's a flag called unknown members. And basically it's just if it doesn't recognize member, if it doesn't recognize the file type, such as, I don't know, some random file that it's not familiar with, just write admit, then just in place, and then the file. Sorry, I just wrote that wrong. And actually, you know what? I realized that I should be doing this on the directory itself because I want to show you that you can run this on a directory instead of just a single file like exif-tools. So with exif-tools, you would have to use some sort of a for loop to go through all the files in a directory, and it's just unnecessary because this does it recursively. It goes through all the files inside this folder, and it does it all. Okay, I might need to be sudo to do this. Okay, so if you see nothing, then that's good. It ran successfully, don't worry. So once you've cleared it of metadata, now we need to compress the file itself. Now, normally you would do this on Linux with tar. You would just do like tar xvf, I believe, if you wanted to turn it into a gzip file. Now, I'm not going to do that today because I have a very special use case. So I use Nextcloud, which is the cloud provider, and I don't think I actually said that in the beginning, but I use Nextcloud on my mobile as well as my computer. So if I want to share files with my mobile or like an iPhone or an Android or whatever, then gzip doesn't really work. Tar files don't really work as well on these platforms. There's apps for dealing with them, but it's just a lot harder. So what I decide to do instead is I decide to use zip. So zip, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but if you don't have the package installed already, just download it. Zip, and then my file or whatever, dot zip, and then you just supply a file type. And there you go. Oh, sorry, actually, I just realized that I probably should have specified -or to include all the files inside it. So yeah, there we go. So once we have this file, we've stripped it of any metadata, now we can encrypt it. So I'm going to presume that you've imported a key from, whatever user that you're going to encrypt this for. So I tend to have a key for my mobile as well as my laptop. It's just easier for me. I don't know if you can self-sign a file, but yeah, that's just the way I do it anyway. So I'm going to run GPG, I'm going to run encrypt, I'm going to use sign, armor, then I'm going to specify -or, and I'm going to specify the email address of the key that I want to encrypt this for. For now, I'm just going to use my email. I'm going to say yes, and it's going to encrypt this. Oh, jeez, I just realized that I need to actually specify the file that I want to encrypt. Yeah, it works better when you turn it on. Okay, yes, and then it's going to ask me for a password, and I'm going to type it in. And there you go. So if we look at what we have now, we have this .asc file, which is completely encrypted. So yeah, if you have Nextcloud set up, for example, you'll probably have a Nextcloud folder. So it's at like, I don't know, my home directory. So what you could do is say you have like, I don't know, some sort of local directory here where you want your files before they've been encrypted. You can just move this over to whatever the Nextcloud folder is, and you should be good to go. It'll sync, and you won't have to worry about it. Now, the thing is, all of this is quite, I don't know about you, but I don't like doing stuff, especially if I can automate it easily. So what I've done is I've created a basic tool called Cosaint. So what this is it's a basic CLI. It's written in shell. And what it does is it does all this automatically. So it'll scrape all the metadata off of it, it'll compress a file and encrypt it. And if you specify a directory that you want it to sync to, it'll just get rid of all these, like this nasty zip file, for example, and it'll move this file over to your synced directory. So it's quite handy if you do this quite often, if you have a load of files locally. You want it to be synced into the cloud, you want it to be encrypted, but it's just a lot of work, doing all of it individually, especially. So yeah, I'm going to show you how we can do that today. So first, I'm going to clone my Git repository. Do I have it already? Okay, I'll just remove this. Okay, I'm going to clone the repository. And here we go. So I should probably specify what it actually contains. So it contains a basic shell script called Cosaint, which can be used as a CLI or as part of a systemd service, which I'll show you afterwards. There's a shell script called Cosaint Monitor and Monitor Exif, and basically what these do is they're shell scripts that use the iNotify tool to monitor when a file has been changed. So basically, if you run this, it'll detect when you've created or added a file to a specific folder, and it'll perform all the actions, so getting rid of all the EXIF data and everything. Now, I've also created a systemd service, which just runs that monitor tool, and basically it just runs it using your email that you specified and the local directory that you wanted to work on. And basically this will just run in the background. You won't have to worry about it. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this cosaint.sh. I'm going to copy it to the user local bin. So this is just so we can execute it in any directory that we want. I might as well do the same with the Cosaint monitor. Okay, so I'll show you what code is actually in this file so we can get a better grip of it. So we need to specify an action. This is either encrypt or clean or all. So if you specify clean, all it'll do is it will remove the metadata of all the files. If you specify all, then it'll do the cleaning action of the metadata, and it'll also encrypt it and compress it as well. The file is just the directory or file that you want to perform the actions on. The email you need to specify if you're doing encryptions, so for your GPG key. The directory is another optional one. It's basically if you want to sync all the files to a directory. So if you don't specify this, all the files will just remain in the local directory that you ran it in. So I'm going to run cosaint-a. I'm going to do all because I want to strip it of metadata as well. The file is going to be my directory. My email is going to be, so the email is going to be of the recipient. So it's not actually your email itself, it's whoever you want it encrypted for. And the directory is just a directory that you want it to sync to. Now this is optional. I could show you afterwards, but it'll basically just leave them in the local file itself. Okay. Oh, I need to specify cosaint.sh. You can make it an executable, I guess, and you won't run into that problem. Gonna do yes. And boom, there you go. So if we just do ls on this Nextcloud file, so you'll see that we have this file here now. So what actually happened there? We ran this tool, we specified the file that we wanted to perform all the operations on, and we specified the user email that we want to be able to view the file. So it stripped the files in this directory of all its metadata. It compressed the file, it encrypted it using our GPG key, and it synced it all the way over to our Nextcloud instance. And so, yeah, that's just a pretty simple tool. I wanted to create that because, there's a lot of tasks in trying to do these things, trying to compress it and everything like that. Now, with the systemd file, basically you just copy this systemd service file over to I think it's was etc system d system, and basically you just reload the daemon and start the service. I have steps on how you can do that down below here. So I hope you found this useful. Just hope that you gained a better understanding of what you should be doing to try and secure your files before you put them on a public cloud. I mean, the best alternative is to just run your own cloud server. So I have a tutorial on how you can set up a Nextcloud server. But yeah, if I know people sometimes can't do that, maybe you have a Google account or whatever that you associate with your college or whatever, or your work, and you just have to use that. So this is just a better alternative if you want to maybe just keep yourself a bit more secure. So if you have any issues, please let me know. And until then, I'll see you next time.